What's up guys, and welcome to my 4.2 updated Dahlia guide. In this video I'm taking you over everything you do need to know in order to understand and build the Dahlia, including a kit overview, best Lightcones, best Relic sets and Planar Ornaments, the stats you want to run for main sets and sub-stat goals, and finally some general team building ideas. Stuck grinding in Honkai Star Rail? Need stellar jades fast? We've got you covered. Head over to U7 Buy, your ultimate gaming hub for save fast and cheap in-game top-ups. Whether it's Star Rail or your other favorite games, U7 delivers instantly and players love it. Check out their Trustpilot reviews, they're actually top ranked. On the Honkai Star Rail direct top-up page, you can recharge your account in seconds. For example, 8080 Honorific shards cost $99.99 in the official store, but on U7 Buy, you can see here it's way cheaper. Just pick your server, enter UID, pay securely, and boom, your account is instantly loaded. Want extra savings? Use code PRETSR at checkout for 5% off, perfect for last minute pulls, battle passes, or surprising a friend. And here's a bonus. If you spend $80 a month on U7 Buy, you can grab the Honkai Star Rail Express Pass for only 1 cent, which is nearly free. Click on the link in my description, recharge fast, save more, and keep blazing those trails. Dahlia's basic attack does fire damage based off her attack to a designated enemy. Her skill deploys a zone for 3 turns. Duration increases by 1 at the start of Dahlia's every turn, then deals fire damage based off her attack to a designated enemy and their adjacent targets. While the zone is up, all allies' weakness break efficiency will be increased by 50%, and toughness reduction taken by enemy targets while not weakness broken can be converted into super break damage. Her ultimate inflicts wilt state on all enemies for 4 turns, then does fire damage based off her attack, which is distributed evenly among all enemies. Enemies in the wilt state have their defense decreased by 18% and is implanted with the weakness of all dance partner types. Her talent, entering combat will regenerate 35 energy for Dahlia and make her the dance partner alongside the teammate who triggered combat. If no dance partner exists on the field, the unit with the highest break effect will become a dance partner alongside Dahlia. After a dance partner attacks a weakness broken enemy, the toughness reduction of this attack will be converted into an instance of super break damage at 60%, and after an enemy target gets attacked by other dance partner, Dahlia will launch a follow-up attack that does 5 instances of damage, each doing fire damage based off her attack to a random enemy, and after each instance of damage dealt to a weakness broken enemy target, the toughness reduction from this attack will be converted to an instance of super break damage at 200%, and the effect is triggered once per turn. The technique creates a special dimension for 20 seconds where enemies cannot actively attack allies. Entering combat with Dahlia's technique active will immediately deploy her zone, and converts the combat triggering toughness into an instance of super break damage at 60% against enemy targets that are weakness broken. For bonus traces, her A2 will increase other allies' break effect based off 24% of the Dahlia's break effect plus 50% for 1 turn entering combat, and the effect can be re-triggered when Dahlia receives healing or a shield from an ally for 3 turns and cannot repeatedly trigger within 1 turn. Her A4 will allow her follow-up attack to recover a skill point for allies. Every 2 instances of Talent's follow-up attack used, the effect can trigger once. And her A6, when an ally target implants a weakness onto an enemy target, their speed will increase by 30% for 2 turns, and if your name is Firefly, then after the attack additionally deals fixed amount of 20 fire toughness reduction to every enemy target implanted with the weakness. Also regenerates energy equal to 10% of max energy, and the effect can regenerate up to 50% of max energy. For her Eidolons, her E1 will make the super break damage multiplier provided by the talent, which only previously exclusively applied to dance partners, now apply to everyone, while the dance partners themselves will have a 40% extra boost. After dance partners use an attack, additionally deals the attacked enemy targets a fixed amount of toughness reduction equal to 25% of their max toughness, minimum 10, maximum 300, and the effect can only be triggered once per enemy target and is reset after the enemy target receives a killing blow. Her E2 will decrease every enemy's all-type res by 20% if Dahlia is on the field, and any enemy target entering the field will immediately be inflicted with the wilt state on them for 3 turns. Her E4 increases the damage instances dealt by her follow-up attack by 5, and it will also make enemies take 12% more damage for 2 turns. And her E6 will increase the dance partner's break effect by 150%, and using the talent's follow-up attack will advance the next action of all dance partners by 20%. For her best Lightcones, of course her best one is going to be her own signature Lightcone, providing the wearer's 60% break effect. Enter combat will increase break damage dealt by the wearer and the teammate who triggered combat by 32%. If no teammate triggered combat, it applies to the character with the highest break effect instead. Same type of effects cannot stack, and when the wearer applies a weakness on an enemy target, 1 skill point will be recovered. So everything this Lightcone is providing is good, with some extra break effect and also just break damage for the Dahlia herself, where she also does deal pretty solid damage throughout the battle, but also for the main DPS of the team, usually usually in the form of Firefly, Boontail, or Rappa. And also can provide an extra skill point, so if you are in need of a skill point, maybe you don't have E1 Firefly, or you're spamming skill a lot, this can enable you to use more. This extra skill point can come in clutch. So it's very simple, yet a very effective Lightcone that does work very good on her. Other than that, you can also use Fugue Signature Lightcone, which also provides 60% break effect for the wearer, and anytime an enemy target gets weakness broken, there's a 100% base chance to inflict the charring state on it, which will make them take 18% more break damage that lasts for 2 turns and stacks 2 times. Same amount of break effect as the Dahlia signature, but you can also get up to slightly more break damage for the enemies, and it's also not exclusive to just the Dahlia herself and the dance partner. This is actually based off the enemy. You can stack it up to twice, so you can get up to 36% instead of 32%, so 4% higher break damage. But as opposed to Dahlia's, you can't get the extra skill point, and with the Dahlia, it's going to be an unconditional thing that's going to be active on those 2 characters forever, as opposed to this one where you would have to break them to stack it, which it's really easy to break with the break team, obviously, so this is not really going to be too much of a problem, but this would be the second best option you could use. You can actually very much use Cypher's Lightcone as well, with the 18% speed increase for the wearer, 120% base chance to inflict a bamboozle state on enemy targets when the wearer uses an attack, and enemies under bamboozle will have their defense decreased by 16% for 2 turns, and if the wearer has 170 speed or higher, there will be 120% base chance to also inflict the theft state on every enemy target, where they will have an additional defense decrease by 8% for 2 turns. So it gives you the speed to help you get to the 170 requirement for the full effect of this Lightcone. The Dahlia also has speed traces with solid base speed. You still would need to build a good amount of speed, but since you build her really fast anyways, this could help you push to a higher breakpoint, and gives you 24% defense shred total, which is great for break characters, especially since it's one of their few ways to increase damage. So this is the third best option you can overall use. You can also use the Pearls Lightcone, which has a 60% base chance to ensnare hit enemies, and ensnared enemies will have their defense decreased by 12%, and at S5 it's 100% base chance with 16% defense shred. It's pretty much a worse version of Cypher's Lightcone. It's less defense shred without any speed increases either, and also requires some more effect hit rate to be built. So if you have none of the other options, you can use this Lightcone in its place. For relic sets, the most consistent one for most people is going to be 4-piece Iron Cavalry. 2-piece increasing break effect by 60%, 4-piece allows break damage to ignore 10% of enemy's defense if the wearer does have 150% break effect or higher, and 250% break effect or higher will allow super break damage dealt to enemy target to additionally ignore 50% of their defense. Break effect, one of the only ways you're building break characters, and one of the only stats that matter. And then the 4-piece provides up to a 25% defense ignore for super break damage in total, where she does convert it anyway, so you practically always will be having that. So all the main sources of damage is going to provide a big increase, and just like I mentioned previously in the Lightcone section, the Dahlia also does do pretty solid damage throughout the battle, so focusing on her damage is actually not a bad idea. However, if you do want to get more turns, the best set for that would be Eagle. 2-piece is useless, 4-piece 25% advance forward when the wearer uses their ultimate, so you combine this with an energy recharge rope, which is one of the most common things you will run, and you also would combine it with super high speed thresholds. This can even pair very well with something like Cypher Lightcone that gives you even more speed, and potentially can aid you to get another turn within a cycle. So this allows you to either act quicker, gain another turn, allow you to use your skill more, you can get your ult faster since you get to act quicker. As I always mentioned when talking about the Eagle set, be sure the 4-piece is actually netting you something, such as the extra turn that I mentioned, or at least acting before enemies, because then otherwise this wouldn't really provide you much benefit, and you'd get better value running something else. But for extra turns and overall potential, Eagle can be very good. Other than that, it would be combining 2-piece speed with 2-piece break, or just doing 2-piece break and 2-piece break. So speed sets are Warrior Goddess, Divider, Relieved Ordeal, and Hackerspace. Break sets would be doing 2-piece Thief, 2-piece Watchmaker, and also 2-piece Iron Cavalry. You could also do 4-piece Thief. It's the same as running 2-piece break, but also with the extra 3 energy you could get when the wearer does break an enemy target. So if you have a set laying around for that, you can use that, but ideally either do 4-piece Iron Cavalry for best damage or 4-piece Eagle setups. For Planar Ornaments, the only one you really want to use is Forge with 6% speed and 40% break effect when attacking an enemy with fire weakness. 6% speed is just good for building her, and also the 40% break effect is not really going to have a requirement because the Dahlia is able to implant the weaknesses of dance partners, which always includes herself. So it is a permanent implant of fire weakness. Because of that, you can really permanently get this effect up as long as there's someone alive on the field to have the fire weakness and it doesn't just get dispelled. So there is some cases where it might not be active, but for the most part, this is really just the only one you want to run. For the main stats on the relics, for the body, ideally you want to do HP percent or defense percent. However, if you are running a light code that has 100% base chance for something, in that case you could run effect hit rate so you can get up to the 67% you would need to guarantee those debuffs, such as something like the Pearls light code. For the feat, you want speed. For the orb, you want HP percent or defense percent. And for the Lin group, you can do either energy regen rate or break effect. Both have their perks. Energy regen allows you to get a more consistent ult cycle, while break effect can allow you to further increase her actual buff capability. It is, however, more preferable to do energy regen for smoother rotations. For the substats, you really just focus on speed and also break effect. In general, getting the Dahlia to hyperspeed and above is going to be ideal. If you're using Cypher Cone, be sure you get 170 to get the full effect. If you're doing Eagle setups, then you'd probably need upwards of 170 to even 180, which would of course change depending on if characters on your team are holding Dance as Dance, so on and so forth. Break effect, you just want to make sure you have over 250% in battle for Iron Cavalry if you're running that, but you also just want to get as much as possible because do remember, she is able to give her own break effect to your team, so you want to build as much break effect as possible to give the best buff to your team. It might not be something you have to focus on super consistently because the best break teams often are sustainless, so you only have it for that one turn, but it's still ideally better to build as much break effect as you can because outside of that buff, you still very much would want a lot of break effect to do good damage. So again, speed and break effect, that's really your only goals. If you are running a 100% base chance light code, then you would also have the effect hit rate goal of 67%. If you have less than 100 base chance in your light code, such as having a lesser refined pearls, then you would need to build even more accordingly. Now for some general team building, with the Dahlia, any break character will follow. Any break character is going to want the Dahlia. She is integral to the teams. She is the Kafka of break. So the second slot, of course, would go to the actual DPS, and that is the break one. So if you're using Firefly, or maybe you're using someone like Bootail, or even someone like Rappa, it doesn't matter who it is. For the main ones, you just want to make sure you do pick your break character here. I like Bootail more, so I'm going to put Bootail here instead. Third slot usually would go to someone like Fugue, although Fugue at E0 is quite replaceable with the other two options I'll mention a bit later, but Fugue would usually go to the third slot. The team doesn't really change depending on the DPS, to be honest. Last slot would go to another character that is able to benefit break, since break is better played sustainless because of the nature of it. You're breaking enemies, they don't act as much, so it's usually just better to get the best damage output. The two supports that usually would go at that last slot is either a Harmony Trailblazer with Dance as Dance, which is what I prefer to do for all the break characters. You can also use Rod Mei, she can also hold Dance as Dance. It's just that Harmony Trailblazer on a break team with Dance as Dance is a monster, so again, just use either or, so the team would look something like this. If you don't have Fugue in this case, then you would just sub them out for either Harmony Trailblazer, as I mentioned, or even Rod Mei. And if you really do need to use the sustain, your last slot would go to either Lingsha or Gallagher. And then for the DPS, you would just change them out for the main break DPS, so Firefly, Bootail, or Rappa. And that is the full Dahlia 4.2 updated guide. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, drop a like, we greatly appreciate it. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell for future videos like this, along with all the types of content. I'll see you later. Peace out.